True crime is so much a part of everyday media that it seems like the TV series, specials, films, and documentaries all about it have been around forever. But actually, that's not the case. The format we now see wasn't the norm at all in the 80s. A weekly series built around cases and interviews with the people who were a part of them, reenacting the crimes, had never been done before. But then one day a series came along that would not only showcase true crime, but would also give us ghosts, UFOs, and all points in between. Not only that, but the theme song would cause PTSD in most kids my age who had the fortune or misfortune to hear it. That series is Unsolved Mysteries, a series so popular that it changed not only pop culture, but the way investigations within law enforcement were conducted. Today on Gone But Not Forgotten, we're delving into the question, what happened to Unsolved Mysteries?
Before we continue with our video, here's a reminder to click the Store tab on any of our JoBlo channels and browse our collection of the latest and freshest designs in our merch store. Go get you some.
Unsolved Mysteries began its life as news specials on NBC in 1986. It was not, in fact, hosted by Robert Stack. At that time, it was hosted by David Burney and Meredith Baxter Burney. The idea came from the minds of Terry Dunmure and John Cosgrove. The concept of recreating an incident and interviewing the people involved as well as law enforcement was intriguing for viewers. It was also a way to get tips and leads on cases that have run out of steam or gone cold by vigilant viewers ready to call in. This was a few years before America's Most Wanted would air. The specials were a hit and led to the idea of branching out to not just missing persons. In 1987, the first Unsolved Mystery special aired, hosted by Perry Mason himself, Raymond Burr. Over the next couple of years, 6 more would air, with Carl Malden hosting the first 2, and the legendary and iconic Robert Stack stepping out of the fog to host the last 4 and cementing himself as the voice of the series. Stack wasn't as expensive as Burr or Malden, which is why he got the permanent gig, but I honestly couldn't see anyone but him, much less hear someone else's voice on the show. But you can tell from the fact the 3 hosts all came from the realms of crime TV series, that of Perry Mason, Mike Stone from Streets of San Francisco, and Elliot Ness. The series wanted viewers to equate their hosts with heroic types from the world of law. This is funny though, since a lot of people equate Stack in the series as adding to the creep factor of the show. You knew when he walked out of the shadows, you were in for something. The series benefited from the fact that it was directed by and involved several creators from the world of documentary filmmaking. This included David Vassar, who would end up doing around 100 episodes of the series, many of them involving UFOs. It was also relatively inexpensive for NBC to produce because the towns involved and law enforcement were usually anxious to help the show. This was because it would bring eyes to the crimes and mysteries that they were still trying to get answers to. Law enforcement would offer to be on screen in the reenactments. Not only that, but it would provide vehicles and locations. Not to mention they would help with keeping areas clear for filming. Sometimes this wouldn't quite work out though, as in some cases, while the entire police force would be on location, an actual crime scene would occur. So they would have to leave, thus leaving the film crew without anyone to shoot. The reenactments of Unsolved Mysteries are interesting, as the series would often rely on the actual people involved to play themselves in them. This meant that in the majority of those episodes, the acting was interesting. But you also had to give some respect to these people, as they were, in cases of missing persons or murders, trying to find out what happened to their loved ones. It was admirable since they were reliving the trauma of the event in order to do so. The series went on location to film the episodes. Due to this, the showrunners would usually look for local talent when it came to actors, commonly from theater groups. Local actors would jump at the chance as this was network TV. One of those actors was a young man named Matthew McConaughey. McConaughey was in a 5th season episode that aired in 1992. According to the actor, who played a murder victim named Larry Dickens, the killer was found only 2 weeks after the episode aired. Of course, McConaughey spends the majority of his time on screen fairly shirtless, and his death scene has some unique choices. This was his first acting job, which he followed up not long after with Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, and eventually an Oscar. The moral of the story is, keep at it and you'll succeed, even if you have to play a cannibal redneck once in a while. The following year on Unsolved Mysteries, actor Daniel Dae Kim also appeared in a reenactment involving the murder of Soo-ya Kim as Kim's brother-in-law. In 1998, during the 10th season of the series, singer Jon Bon Jovi appeared in an episode as an interview subject during a segment focused on the murder of Catherine Corzilius, his tour manager's 6-year-old daughter. Bon Jovi had written a song in memory of the young girl called August 7, 415, which is the day and time of her death. Unfortunately, this case is still unsolved as of today. Over the years, other musicians appeared in episodes that touched their lives, including Henry Rollins and New Kids on the Block. Some of the actors who appeared in the series as the criminals would run into issues out in the real world, and in one instance actually had police show up to arrest them when a tipster called them in. The situation got resolved, but it became enough of an issue that the producers eventually started giving actors what I call the bad guy card. A card they could show law enforcement advising they weren't the real murderer, but only played one on TV. Funny enough though, that's not always the case. One time, 2 men came into audition for roles as thieves during a segment. The producers were unnerved by how well these, quote, actors were doing their routine. It was chilling how well they moved like you would expect someone breaking and entering would. When the audition was over, the men were asked how they researched the roles, and they offhandedly said, "Oh, we're robbers." Needless to say, you can be too overqualified for a role. The series took who they could get for many episodes, and per director David Vassar, you could tell when the acting and dialogue weren't great. Those were episodes that had a lot of narration. The narrator would be used to cover the lack of good acting. So next time you're watching, keep an ear out for that. The series didn't focus all on true crime though. The directors and producers felt often that each segment was like making a mini movie. It also allowed the series to mix things up and keep things interesting for the audience. The original series was shot on film to add to this, and there were special effects. An example of this was the time they blew up an abandoned church that would accidentally cause windows to explode out of nearby houses.
And also, not only did it explode, but all these pieces of wood started flying and hitting the huts, and the producer almost got stabbed by a piece of wood coming through.
Most of these effects were practical, but there were of course exceptions, usually involving episodes that focused on UFOs. Throughout the series, Unsolved Mysteries would dip into, as said, aliens, cryptids, ghosts, lost loves, and more. Speaking of cryptids and practical effects, one in particular stands out. One of the earlier episodes focusing on Bigfoot had the series renting the Rick Baker-made Harry and the Hendersons costume to portray the creature in the episode. While shooting the actor in the suit outside a bar, the customers came out to see the creature on their street and immediately started chasing him. Probably the lack of fear was given to them by the gift of booze. The crew thought it was hilarious, but I'm pretty sure the actor in that heavy suit didn't feel the same way. Gary Malkin's theme music was key to the success of the series as well. As said, kids my age have a reaction just hearing it from the onset because we knew stuff was going to get weird and creepy.
We get letters from people who say, "It's been 30 years and I'm still scared by the Unsolved Mysteries music."
Over the years, the theme has changed slightly, but at its core, it's still eerie and memorable. You know it's Unsolved Mysteries when you hear it. Robert Stack became synonymous with the show and added the gravitas and serious nature that would draw viewers in. The fans who had grown up watching him over the years in films and TV knew he was the real deal, and he didn't feel camp at all in his role as host. According to the showrunners, Robert Stack saw his role in a way like the host of a live theater performance. He was the master of ceremonies, leading viewers through this often surreal group of stories. Also, the guy could rock a trench coat like no one else. Stack would be the only host for the series up until 1999, when Virginia Madsen joined him in an attempt to garner more ratings. Over the years, Unsolved Mysteries would feature hundreds of mysteries totaling over 1,000 cases, and a number of them were solved either during the series' run.
We would just call up police stations and we would call up local newspaper and we would just ask if there were stories that they had.
They sent newspapers to people all over the country whose job it was to go through those papers, local newspapers, find stories in the categories that we sent them and literally cut those out of the newspaper and send them to us.
There would be updates on episodes constantly. Even more impressive is that mysteries are still being solved even after its cancellation. Every so often, there would be themed episodes that would throw off the segment format. It would also spawn TV movies based on some of the cases shown, like Victim of Love, The Shannon Moore Story, and 3 more. There would also be a short-lived spin-off called Final Appeal from the Files of Unsolved Mysteries, which was all about people who were convicted of crimes that were actually innocent. Unsolved Mysteries is another of those network shows that didn't stay on one network. In fact, the series would show up on a number of them over the years. While it began life on NBC in 1987 and would stay on until 1997, that same year it would make a move to CBS. As we said, the ratings weren't the best, and even adding Virginia Madsen wasn't enough to keep the show alive. When the series would air the 2 seasons in reruns, they actually dubbed Stack over Madsen's narration. In 2001, Lifetime, the home of all women in peril and true crime drama, had 2 seasons of the series produced. The new season would end in 2002. Sadly, Robert Stack revealed his cancer diagnosis that same year and would pass away in 2003. Spike TV brought the series back in 2008 and had Dennis Farina, another icon of crime drama, hosting. Weirdly, this version re-showed old cases from the original run and edited them down to shorter segments. Viewers weren't fans of this, and the return of Unsolved Mysteries was short-lived, ending in 2010. 10 years later, Netflix brought back the show with Stranger Things producer Sean Levy and the original creators. The series differs as each episode is only one mystery. There's no host, but one thing I loved was how during the intro, we see the silhouette of Robert Stack in his iconic trench coat. The new version of Unsolved Mysteries has a slick style and keeps with the recreation and interview format. So we've answered that question about if it should come back or not, as it already did and will return with another season this year. Unsolved Mysteries, as you can see, has not ever gone away. In the land of streaming, the original series can be found to watch in multiple places such as Tubi, which has a 24/7 network dedicated to it. It's on YouTube as well as various other streaming platforms. Even better, the tip line and ability to send in information has never gone away either. At the end of the original run, the phone number was removed and replaced with a P.O. box. Now if you go to the unsolved.com website, you can easily submit tips and or mysteries for the new Netflix series. Unsolved Mysteries was unique in its day. It would go on to inspire an entire genre of documentary-style content that would introduce viewers to the uncanny, unknown, and unbelievable. To this day, it's still helping solve mysteries thanks to giving an outlet for viewers to get involved and helping those who feel like there's nothing else to be done. It also gave fans a look into phenomena they may have never heard of before, and stories that gave them nightmares, but also views into possibilities that were beyond the everyday. It gave hope that loved ones who disappeared could be found, and that there were people out there who were willing to help total strangers when it came to doing the right thing, and it continues to do so. I like to think of Robert Stack as a sort of Rod Serling, who hosted the real version of The Twilight Zone, which Unsolved Mysteries, in a way, is. Stepping out of the shadows and guiding us along the way with stories that show the strangeness, the horror, and the magic of the everyday, and giving us a chance to help solve a mystery.
Join me on Wednesday for our next edition of Unsolved Mysteries.